In 1973, the studio that invented TV anime went bankrupt. Mushi Production, founded by the god of manga himself, collapsed under hundreds of millions of yen in debt. But the company didn't fall alone because the entire business model that Osamu Tezuka built for the anime industry, the one every studio copied, was crumbling around it. Here's the thing though, 7 years later, a single genre had turned anime into a global cultural phenomenon, launched a multi-billion-dollar merchandise empire, and exported Japanese animation to every continent on Earth. By the end of this video, you'll understand how a single creative decision in 1972 built the business model that 80% of anime still runs on today.
Not a weapon, it's my son.
But the problem didn't start in the 70s, it started at the very beginning. When Tezuka's Mushi Production launched Astro Boy on January 1st, 1963, it became Japan's first weekly 30-minute TV anime. To make it possible, Tezuka deliberately priced episodes below production cost. The gamble worked like this: lose money on every broadcast, then just cover the gap through merchandise and sponsorship from companies like Meiji Seika, whose sticker sets, tin toys, and candy tie-ins kept the operation afloat. Every studio that followed copied the math, because it was the only math that existed. What that created, though, was an industry running on fumes. One where studios ground through their staff on impossible budgets, and animators cut motion to as low as 8 frames per second just to keep the lights on. When the merchandise money dried up, the studios had nothing else to fall back on. Then, by the early 70s, the anime landscape had settled into a rotation of sports dramas, supernatural shows, and the occasional robot. Most people think giant robots saved anime from creative stagnation, but that's the wrong crisis entirely, because the real one was financial. So the industry needed someone to fix the math, and the man who did it wasn't even trying to save anything. He was just stuck in traffic. Go Nagai was sitting in gridlock when the image hit him. A car that could sprout legs and step over the jam. He'd already built a reputation with Harenchi Gakuen, a manga so controversial it triggered national outrage from Japan's PTAs. And because he'd been cut off from royalties on that work, he'd founded Dynamic Productions to control the rights on everything after. Then the traffic jam image evolved into something bigger, and Nagai figured out exactly what he wanted to build, and most especially how to protect it. Mazinger Z premiered on Fuji TV on December 3rd, 1972. Built around a concept that was simple but unprecedented. A teenage pilot named Koji Kabuto climbs into a cockpit docked in the head of a giant robot and fights from inside it. A human being physically inside a weapon choosing to fight. Nothing like that had existed before, and that image landed hard in 1970s Japan for a reason. Because this was a nation rebuilt through industrial technology, a post-war miracle powered by manufacturing. So the idea of climbing inside a machine and becoming powerful through it wasn't just fantasy, it was a mirror. And its ratings climbed through 1973, peaking at 30.4% on episode 68 by March 1974, which made it one of the highest-rated anime series ever broadcast. But the creative breakthrough wasn't the revolution. The commercial one was. A Bandai subsidiary called Poppy saw the opportunity first. Their Jumbo Machinda Mazinger Z, a 2-foot figure released in 1973, moved 400,000 units in 5 months. Then in February 1974, they followed it with the Chogokin GA01, a die-cast figure marketed as being made of the same fictional super alloy as the robot in the show with a firing rocket fist. Poppy's vehicle line hit roughly 1 million units a month by that same year, and that's when the revolution showed its other face. Every toy company in Japan saw those numbers and understood something fundamental. The show wasn't the product, the toy was the product, and the show was just how you sold it. By the mid-70s, competitors were commissioning robot designs first, and then approaching studios to build shows around them second. And that's when the creative process had inverted entirely. Anime didn't make toys anymore. Toys made anime. And the genre just kept expanding from there. Nagai and his collaborator Ken Ishikawa had already pushed the format further with Get a Robo in April 1974, introducing the combining Mecha 3 jets, 3 pilots, 3 robot configurations, because more forms meant more toys. And that combining template became the blueprint every competitor copied. By the late 70s, sponsors held effective veto over what got made, what got changed, and what got canceled. And the 30-minute toy commercial era was in full effect. But what nobody expected was what happened inside that system. A director named Tadaho Nagahama took the super robot format and pushed it somewhere no one thought it could go. His robot romance trilogy, Combattler 5 in 1976, Voltes 5 in 1977, and Daimos in 1978, injected serialized storytelling, political subtext, and genuine human conflict into a genre built to sell action figures. Voltes 5 in particular told the story of an uprising against a caste-divided alien empire, a population of slaves overthrowing a dictator. And when the show aired in the Philippines, it resonated so deeply with viewers living under the Marcos regime that the government banned it on August 27, 1979, just 4 episodes from the finale. And it became a symbol of resistance that outlasted the dictatorship itself. And while all of this played out in Japan, Mecha was quietly crossing borders. Grendizer, the third and final entry in Nagai's Mazinger saga, had aired in Japan from 1975 to 1977 as a moderate success. But none of that mattered when it was dubbed Goldorak and premiered in France on July 3, 1978. Because it became the country's first true anime phenomenon overnight, Paris Match called it the madness of Goldorak. And across Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Egypt, the show defined an entire generation's childhood. The story of a displaced prince landing differently in a region already shaped by conflict. Then in 2022, Saudi Arabia unveiled a 110-foot Grendizer statue, the largest metal sculpture of a fictional character ever built. Now sit with that for a second. A genre designed to sell toys to Japanese children had accidentally become the vehicle that introduced the entire world to anime. But back in Japan, the sponsors still held the leash, and that tension was about to reach its breaking point. By 1979, the team at Nippon Sunrise had grown tired of the cycle. Their planning office, led by Eiji Yamahura and Masaho Izuka, laid out an explicit goal: stop being a vehicle for selling toys and build something that could make the Sunrise name itself a household word. They'd studied the older skewing success of space battleship Yamato and landed on a target of 300,000 to 400,000 fanatical older fans, enough to sustain a franchise on its own terms. Yoshiyuki Tomino's Zambot 3 in 1977 was technically a super robot show, but one where the hero's family members died, civilians resented the protagonists, and the finale turned genuinely bleak. So when Tomino, working with mechanical designer Kunio Okawara and character designer Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, built Mobile Suit Gundam, the premise went further than anything before it. The robots weren't invincible heroes powered by fictional energy. They were mass-produced military hardware used by ordinary soldiers in a war with no clean moral lines. It was the creative evolution the genre had been building toward. So while Nagahama worked within the toy sponsor system, Tomino was trying to outgrow it. But Clover, the toy company funding the show, needed one thing: children buying toys. And they judged the original concept unmarketable and demanded robots. So Tomino added the robots. Yet when Gundam premiered on April 7, 1979, those kids weren't watching. The show attracted older teens and young adults instead. Still, the first-run ratings in the Kanto region averaged only 5.3%, and Clover's response was interference. They forced the G-Fighter, a combining vehicle designed purely to sell a toy, into episode 24 with no narrative justification whatsoever. Then 52 planned episodes got cut to 43. And what Clover cut short would go on to permanently split Mecha into 2 creative lineages: Super Robot and Real Robot, a divide that would lead straight to Neon Genesis Evangelion and reshape what anime storytelling could be. Meanwhile, the audience that actually showed up, older teens and a passionate female fan base, still couldn't override a sponsor reading one bad quarterly report, and the most important mecha anime ever made got treated as a failed product, not because it didn't connect with people, but because it connected with the wrong audience for the toy aisle. Clover let the show end at 43 episodes, but the reruns would tell a different story entirely. Daily broadcasts found the audience Clover never targeted, pushing Kanto ratings to 17.9%, while Nagoya peaked at 29.1%. And then Bandai, who had quietly acquired the plastic model rights Clover never valued, launched the first Gunpla kit in July 1980, and over 1 million units shipped within 6 months. Then the first theatrical film premiered, on February 22, 1981, drawing 15,000 fans to Shinjuku, and Asahi Shimbun would call it the day anime changed. Now this is the part that gets me. Clover, the sponsor that tried to kill Gundam, went bankrupt. Meanwhile, Bandai, the company that understood the audience, eventually bought Sunrise outright. As of 2024, Bandai Spirits has shipped over 800 million Gunpla units worldwide. 800 million, all built on the same toy-first logic that started with Mazinger Z in 1972. That same logic nearly killed Gundam. But what saved it was Bandai doing what Clover never would, selling to the audience the show actually had. And that rescue locked in the template of today. The production committee model that finances roughly 80% of anime traces directly back to the Mecha era's proof of concept. Anime exists to sell merchandise, and merchandise determines what gets made. Mecha didn't just transform a genre, it built the operating system modern anime still runs on. Giant robots didn't become anime's biggest revolution because they looked cool in a cockpit. They became the revolution because they transformed everything. The business model that kept the industry alive, the creative ambition that proved the format could carry genuine drama, and the global reach that introduced the world to anime for the first time. Go Nagai sat in traffic and gave the industry the economics to survive. Nagahama showed Mecha could hold real weight, and Tomino proved it didn't need to be a toy commercial to matter. The revolution was real, and anime is still living inside it. Gundam wasn't the last franchise the industry tried to squeeze, but that's a story for next time.